The Arizona Cardinals didn't look great yesterday. Was it a blip in the radar or the start of a trend? Let's discuss.
You are Locked On Cardinals, your daily Arizona Cardinals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Cardinals, Alex Clancy here. Follow me on Twitter, Clancy's Corner. Follow the podcast at Locked On AZ Cards. Thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen. Free wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Been in sports radio here since 2011, sports media, I guess, hosting this lovely podcast since 2016. Yesterday wasn't great. And we'll discuss the big picture stuff, the little picture stuff, everything in between. Was it a blip in the radar? Was it more of a trend that's starting that we've been blinded to over the last couple of weeks? I'm not answering any of those. Those are not hypothetical. Those are not rhetorical. I will discuss them throughout the day. There were some positives yesterday, believe it or not. Discuss those in the final segment. The overarching theme is that it's not as bad as it looked, even though it looked pretty bad. Today's episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. So the Cardinals lose 16-6, and they scored first, and then they kind of forgot how to play football for a couple quarters offensively. The big sticking out points, the offensive line, worst game of the year by far. Doesn't matter if they had more sacks given up in the past few weeks. Worst game by far last week or yesterday. Worst game by far. Gave up 5 sacks, no cohesion. Paris Johnson Jr. maybe had his worst game as a pro. Geno Williams, it took him 2.5 quarters to get his legs. The interior of the defensive line got beat up by Leonard Williams all day, and it wasn't good. Gave Kyler Murray no time, and recipe for disaster is when Kyler Murray doesn't have 2 seconds to at least make a decision behind the line of scrimmage, and he got roughed up a little bit throughout the game. We'll discuss that later. Running game was non-existent. Leading rusher was Trey Benson with 18 yards rushing. James Conner 7 for 8. They could never get anything done on the ground against a bottom third rush defense in the Seattle Seahawks. Kyler Murray's pick 6, terrible. Made a mistake. It was one of those field plays that Michael Wilson leveled out his route instead of going upfield. Kyler Murray threw it upfield into the inviting arms of Kobe Bryant for a pick 6. Coming off the bye, it could have gone one of two ways. Reinvigorated after a 4-game win streak going into the bye, instilling dominance in the NFC West against a team who had just got a very, very important win for them in San Francisco the week before, and that didn't happen. The other thing that happened was the Cardinals came out lethargic. The offense was never on the right page when it needed to be. I'll explain what I mean here in just a second. They didn't score touchdowns, kick field goals. That was the biggest key to victory for me for the Cardinals was touchdowns, not field goals. That's what it is the entirety of the season. Touchdowns, not field goals. And yesterday was the first time that they didn't convert a touchdown and goal to go. I think they were 16 for 16 up until this point yesterday. It just wasn't good. They look bad. Now, the reason why it's not as bad as it looked, and you know me every day as you know me. If this is your first listen to Locked On Cardinals, first of all, thank you. Maybe make tomorrow your second listen. But I don't sugarcoat just to do it. I don't hold that as like a badge of honor. It's just not how I think. And I want to treat you like adults, and that's what I do here. I still don't think it was as bad as it looked. And the reason for that is they moved the ball between the 20s pretty well for a good chunk of this game. And then it just kind of sputtered. It was a 4th down debacle. Didn't convert. The pick 6 was really bad at like the worst time. The Cardinals were in this game for pretty much the entirety of the game. It was a 1-score game before Seattle kicked the field goal with 3 minutes left. Like, this was not a Washington Commanders just throttling of the Cardinals. This wasn't an absolute blowout. This wasn't an embarrassment like Green Bay. Okay? It wasn't. They didn't play well on offense, but it wasn't an embarrassment. Seattle was juiced up at home against one of the tougher places to play in football. And it's not an excuse. It's a reason. I said all week, the Seattle games are weird. They're weird. Usually the team with less momentum wins the game. It's just what it's been ever since, Chandler Jones and Carson Palmer were here. Chandler Jones had his biggest days when the Cardinals had no business winning games at CenturyLink Field, which is what it was, when Seattle was a powerhouse, and they did. It's weird. But it's something that just needs to be monitored. They've got Minnesota on the road, another very tough test next week. And they've got Seattle at home at State Farm Stadium in week 14. We're going to find out a lot in the next couple of weeks. And I've been saying that throughout the year because it's very, very existential with what we're experiencing. Most people didn't expect them to be here, including me. Now there's not really an excuse for them to slow down, and we're just going to see. But, didn't look great. Again, rushing yards were not there. That's something that the Cardinals, that's the heartbeat of this offense. And the one thing for me, sorry, the one thing for me that was a little off-putting, I didn't really understand it, was they came out and threw the ball right away. They didn't even try to establish the run early on. It was a little here, a little there, but in weeks past, it's been James Conner, first down. James Conner, Trey McBride, James Conner, first down. Move. And it wasn't that at all. They didn't get any sort of momentum. Trey Benson had one little burst run, but that was about it. Kyler Murray didn't do much. The one small chunk gain he got absolutely obliterated, knocked the wind out of him. For those that didn't know what happened there, it turns out got the wind knocked out of him. The refs saw his head hit the turf. They wanted to conduct a concussion protocol test, and he passed. That's why he was in the blue medical tent. It just wasn't cohesive at all. And for me to say that it's not an issue, that it's, they'll be fine next week. No. It's something to monitor. But at this point in the season, they deserve the benefit of the doubt to wait instead of people jumping off, their rockers like, I told you Kyler Murray sucked. Look at that pick six. Yeah, he made a mistake. Okay. It was a bad throw. It was a bad decision on his part. Okay. Cardinals, it was still a one-score game with 3 minutes left, and the Cardinals played terribly. Something to monitor. They got Minnesota, another tough test, another tough road spot to play in on the road next week. And it could very well be to keep the Cardinals in contention for, if they do win the NFC West, to not be the 4 seed. This is what we're looking at here. Wasn't a great week for wins and losses. Rams lost, 49ers lost. So at least the Cardinals have that, that buffer there still. But they're no way, shape, or form out of anything because they lost in the way that they lost yesterday. It wasn't as bad as it looked. The defense played great. Jackson Smith-Njigba 8, okay? The one thing that I said, aside from touchdowns, not field goals for the Cardinals offense, the one thing that I said on the crossover this past Thursday and on Friday when I reiterated it was, you can't let Jackson Smith-Njigba catch a screen pass and house it. And he almost did. That was it. And then set up the touchdown. That was it. There was one massive chunk play. I think DK Metcalf had a really, really big chunk play early in the game, I think first quarter. But they shut him down for the majority of the game. Jackson Smith-Njigba, that's what set it up the touchdown. It's a massive, just wide receiver screen that is like a screen, but it's a slant, and they lead him in. It's a Seattle Seahawks staple since they drafted him, and they even use it with Tyler Lockett. But now, Jackson Smith-Njigba, the younger version. They didn't play that poorly. It was clunky. It was gross, but the defense played really well. So if you want one side of the football to play really, really well and the other to struggle, even though it's splitting hairs, you'd rather have the defense show out that they're still there, that they're still competent and elevated. And they are. They are. The biggest story from yesterday was the offensive line played terribly, just out of nowhere. Leonard Williams is a really good pass rusher, one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And he wreaked havoc yesterday. Why? Why? And before you say, oh, it was Geno Williams, let's take a beat. Okay? Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is offering more than 40 free online courses, including Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution, Introduction to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, A Land of Hope, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and a brand new documentary-style course on Marxism, socialism, and communism. All of Hillsdale courses are self-paced so that you can start wherever and tune in whenever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures, man. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 100 times your cheese. Run your game all season long on Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the best place. Let me explain it this way. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. Okay? You could do football, naturally. But NBA, full swing. New NBA games also. It's never been easier to do something like this. Now they offer Venmo for quick and easy deposits and withdrawals into your account this sports season. Sign up today and get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that could lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts selected player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. This week on PrizePicks, I'm looking at the football board and selecting Thanksgiving's free square. Tyreek Hill only needs to receive 5.5 receiving yards for the projection to hit. If you're correct on at least one more stat projection, you can win real cash. Download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. So, yeah, wasn't great. 16-6. I mean, for numbers, people, the penalties were a big deal. 5 for 60 for the Cardinals. They allowed 5 sacks. 3 for 12 on third down, which is terrible. And they only had the ball for less than 27 minutes. No defense is equipped to be on the field for as long as the Cardinals defense was. It was a back-breaking 8-minute drive by Seattle that sealed the game late in the game. Like, can't happen. It just can't happen. No matter how well the defense played. Now, the biggest question is, going from yesterday was the O-line, was that a blip or is that the trend and they've just been playing out of their shoes? And I think that this is as close to a rhetorical question as I can ask. Sure, it's TBD, and the Cardinals' offensive line has been elite this season. People have very, very shallow memories, very short memories after a loss. It's the wildest thing. It's the absolute wildest thing. The same people who are saying that Kyler Murray's MVP 2 weeks ago are now saying, oh, he sucks. Oh, he sucks. Like, be better. Be better. Look at things pragmatically. Look at the big picture. The offensive line had their worst performance of the year last year. I think it's safe to say. I mean, close was maybe Buffalo in week 1, but yeah, they played really bad yesterday. Geno Williams got beat early. He got beat often. And then he settled in. Tristan Colon had a tough day. Yalta Frold had a very tough day with Leonard Williams et al. With the Seattle Seahawks front. Noah Brown, his actual name was mentioned yesterday, which isn't a good thing. You know, he's been great. And Paris Johnson Jr. got beat badly, a couple times on the left side. Okay, so is it a blip? Is it a trend? Let's give the young men up front the benefit of the doubt here. That maybe they just didn't have their best stuff. Was it Geno Williams that forced the left side of the offensive line to play poorly? Show me the math on that. How does that work? How does that compute? How does it compute? I'm here. Tell me. I was the first one. You can look on Twitter. I was like, listen, I would start Kelvin Beachum. Okay? Just because why stop a good thing? Why stop a good thing? And it's not, oh, they paid Geno Williams, so they got to start him. No. Jonathan Gannon puts the best lineup out there that he thinks gives the Cardinals the best chance to win. And he thought that Geno Williams on the right side would give the Cardinals the best chance to win. It's not, it's not brain surgery here. They didn't give him Deshaun Watson money, and they're forcing, the issue for a player that's worse than the right tackle has been starting the last 10 games. That's not it. And he has zero impact on the left side of the offensive line. So I think what a lot of this has to do with, and the reason why I say it's a blip and not, and not the beginning of a trend, is the Cardinals vacated the run before the game started, which I don't really understand. Another wild thing, people are just calling for Drew Petzing. Oh, I told you Drew Petzing sucks. Have you not watched the last 6 weeks of football? What are we doing here, guys? Everyone needs to chill the hell out. Please. But they abandoned the run before the game started, so it's okay. So now the Seahawks know that the Cardinals can't run the ball, so they're just going to, they're going to pass rush because they know the majority of it's going to be more of a pass-heavy offense, and they can bank on that. And they did. Very well. Now, Kyler Murray was able to adapt at times. He had to be out of the pocket. There was a lot of feel routes. One of the benefits, one of the bright sides in the pass game was Trey McBride and Kyler Murray, simpatico. He's always open. I've been pining, and if you've been watching or listening to this podcast for years, you've heard me say, how is DeAndre Hopkins not open like Devontae Adams is all the time? How are the Cardinals' best receivers not open like the number one wide receivers who get wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 targets on different teams always open? How is that possible? This year, it's different. Trey McBride is always open. Drew Petzing has schemed Trey McBride to be always open. And that's a beautiful thing. Marvin Harrison Jr., there were a couple takeaways, and I'll highlight this more in the final segment, but where Kyler Murray and Marvin Harrison Jr. were on the same page in the field game, in the gray area plays that I call them, where it's a broken play, but it's not a lost play, and there's a lot of playmakers down the field, and Kyler Murray's in space behind the line of scrimmage, and you got to kind of, like the opposite of the Michael Wilson play, he and Marv are on the same page with that. And that is a huge step. You can't fake that. That's reps. You can't fake that. The organic nature by which he and Marv are on the same page on the field is now something that doesn't regress. You at least have that baseline that they didn't have for the first couple weeks. I told you, the Rams game was an outlier. Don't use that. Don't take that to the bank. That's not real life. That was 2 elite players making 2 ridiculous plays at the same time that resulted in long touchdowns. Both being elite players doesn't equal being simpatico. I'm not going to use that word again. Chef's kiss, sweeping the nation. Thank you to you and yours. I don't know why I yelled that. I don't know why I yelled that. But the offensive line didn't play well. And I think, and I'll leave you with this as we go into the positives, because if you want me to stretch it to a positive, I'm here for you on a Monday morning. Yesterday's performance by the offensive line was the same as the full team performance against Green Bay. It's something that's going to give this team a massive amount of film to watch. The offensive line coach, the offensive line players, Jonathan Gannon, Drew Petzing, they've got plenty to chew on for the next 6 days. And if the offensive line is just like the rest of the Arizona Cardinals, what we've seen this year is they adjust. They learn, they improve it, and they adjust. And that's what we've seen. That's not sugarcoating to sugarcoat. That's what we've seen. The Green Bay game was the best thing that could have happened to this team. The wheels fell off. It's like, okay, hard reset. What the hell is going on here? Why did it happen? Adjust. And they did gloriously. The offensive line, that was the Green Bay game for the offensive line was yesterday. Break it, fix it, move the hell on to Minnesota. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. What are the positives? There are a bunch. I'm going to, compress it to 6 minutes, but there are a bunch. I'll discuss them next. Locked On Cardinals, your team every day. This episode of Locked On Cardinals is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. So, yeah, not a great performance. And unlike poor performances of yesteryear, there were some positive excerpts to take away, and positive excerpts with sustaining power. Not just, there was one great play by one player. It's like, yeah, that was a great play. That made the highlight reel. That player's never done that before, nor will he do that again. All of these are things that are built upon the momentum over the last 18 months, okay? There are some things that we're starting to see as fact. There are some things that we're starting to see that can be trusted, can be set and forget on game day every week. One, Garrett Williams. Garrett Williams is a CB1. He will be a household name if he isn't already. Okay, Garrett Williams is a CB1. Great read on what was looked to be a broken coverage in the end zone with the interception. Was able to pick it. Was able to jump back, change his trajectory, change his momentum, pick it in the end zone, save the game for the Cardinals. Still a one-score game. Great play. He is a stud. Okay, he is an absolute stud, and the Cardinals have their CB1. Set and forget. Two, with that, Budda Baker is having a career year. And the reason why Budda Baker is having a career year, if you've listened to this podcast in 2016, you know this. If this is your first listen, here you go. Here is your Monday morning lesson. Budda Baker is finally able to just play free safety. Budda Baker is finally able to just play his position solely instead of having to cover for 4 or 5 dead spots on the defense. He's able to finally play free. He's able to finally be his entire self. And you are paying him this offseason. He is not going to play it down for another NFL team in his career until this is my projection, he's going to go play for the Seahawks his last year when he's like 35. He's going to go play for the Seahawks 1 year. He's going to go back home. Okay, but for now, you extend him. Anybody that's been in my mentions for the last 2 years saying you got to let him walk, please say you're wrong. Please. It's not about me being right. It's more about what's best for the Cardinals. Back of the Brinks truck in the way of a 30-year-old safety. Okay? He's not going to reset the market for the contract extensions he's going to get. You're going to look at a 3-year deal, 2 years of fully guaranteed money with an out after the 3rd year. This isn't going to be a 4-year deal. Okay? Pay him. Pay him. Because if this defense only gets better, so will he. He's not going to have to overcompensate for a lack of defensive back talent. They've got it. They've got it. And the guys are so young, and it's going to be so good for so long if this is the beginning of the trajectory. 2 or 3, Adrian Taylor-Demerson, ready to roll. Jalen Thompson, we're going to have a conversation. He has gotten Wally pipped at this point by Adrian Taylor-Demerson. Jalen Thompson has been an incredible surprise after being drafted out of the supplemental draft out of Washington State. He's been great. He's been a banger, okay? He had a lot of injuries early on in his career. Those have kind of subsided. He did miss yesterday, which kind of makes my point stupid, but you know what I mean. Like, he's played more than he hasn't over the last couple seasons. He's been a great backup dancer to Budda Baker. They've been great. He's regressed this year, Jalen Thompson has. Not a lot. It's not been obscene, but he's missed open field tackles. He's had a couple not-so-great plays that normally he would make. Okay, Adrian Taylor-Demerson has come in. He's an absolute mauler. He hits so hard. And another person on my laundry list of people, I will add Corbin Smith from Locked On Seahawks. We talked on Thursday. When I brought up Adrian Taylor-Demerson, he said, yes, I had him on the Seahawks radar also. Wish we could have got him. Every single person that I talked to from a different market since Dadrian Taylor-Demerson was drafted said that exact same thing. The Cardinals have their strong safety for the future. He and Budda Baker, alongside Garrett Williams and Max Melton, are the secondary for the future for the Cardinals, Starling Thomas. And they'll probably draft another one, okay? The secondary is going to be the strength for the Cardinals for a long time, and it's starting to show every single week now, which is a very, very, very good thing. It is massive. Kyzir White looked good yesterday, almost had a pick. That defense is really forming into shape. That is a massive positive. Okay, they've got so much money to spend, and they've got so many draft picks, and it's going to be this thing where mention this. I'm going to restart that sentence. It's already become something that the Cardinals haven't had, maybe ever. That defense is catnip for stars. That defense is catnip for pass rushers specifically. You think that other NFL teams don't watch what the Cardinals are doing on defense? They're like, oh, all they need is a pass rusher. And then if you get Darius Robinson back who plays IDL, and you get BJ Ojulari back, and you add a premier pass rusher this offseason, that's a top 5 defense. It's not a figment of anyone's imagination. It's not like, oh, if this continues to happen, it's been happening. Before this defense knew who they were shutting out the Lions in the second half early in this season. They were shutting out the 49ers for the comeback, for the offense came back and Chad Ryland kick to walk off. They've been doing it, but they haven't even been cohesive yet. And now they're cohesive. We'll see what happens with Max Melton, okay? He's a rookie. He's been thrown into action for a defense that's been much better than people expected right away, including me. Of course, I'll be the first one. Be the first one to say I was wrong. I thought I was being rational. I was not. The pass rush is a problem. They got 5 sacks last week, yesterday. A lot of that has to do with it being coverage sacks. The outside's in. It's not the inside out. It's not give it to the big man, have him dunk a couple times, and then kick it out for 3. They're raining 3 balls like Steph Curry, and then they're getting dunks with the sacks, with the coverage sacks. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And then Trey McBride he's it. He's it. He's going to get a big contract extension. He's going to stay in Arizona Cardinal. He's it. Stevie Baby's final gift to the Arizona Cardinals. One of the last draft picks he made, he hit on. And Trey McBride is it. He's everything you want to be. He is George Kittle, maybe more athletic. He's it. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. I know he hasn't gotten in the end zone this year. He is an absolute bona fide tight end 1. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. He and Kyler Murray are in sync. There's like an invisible string between the two of them, and it's only going to get better. When Marv picks up, it's like, pick one. Pick one. Michael Wilson, that over-the-shoulder ridiculous catch to kind of extend the game was wild. The one thing that worries me about Michael Wilson is, like, when his contract's up, he's going to get looks to get a lot more targets than he gets here. And I don't know if that means that they need to throw the ball. Like, it seems like he always makes a play when he gets targeted. So I don't know exactly. I don't know why Zay Jones is here. Like, that's a weird thing with the wide receiver room. They got to figure that out. I'm not exactly, like, there's so many mouths to feed. But I feel like if Michael Wilson goes somewhere, I mean, we're 2 years removed from that, but Michael Wilson goes somewhere, he could be like a fringe wide receiver 1 somewhere else. So I don't know if getting him more involved is something that's necessary, where you take 20% of Trey McBride and Marvin Harrison Jr.'s targets and, you know, find Michael Wilson, like you're running plays for him. That's kind of a TBD thing. But, like, the good things yesterday were really good. It wasn't a Green Bay 0 redeeming qualities game. It wasn't that. There were many takeaways. And again, this was a 1-possession game. The Cardinals just couldn't get in the end zone. They've been so good at getting in the end zone. That's one thing, especially in Minnesota this week coming up. If they struggle inside the 10 again, we're going to have different conversations. Like, I'm running the ball 3 times with James Conner if you're inside the 7. Or you run it twice, and then you put the ball into Kyler Murray's hand. They got to figure that out. But again, the entirety of this show is to remind people that every time there's been some sort of adversity, a loss, whatever it is, the Cardinals have learned from it, bounced back from it, and moved the hell on in a positive direction. So there's no reason to expect anything else until we see it. So for now, it's a blip, not the start of a trend. And we'll see if they can continue to improve this week as they play a massive, massive game on the road in Minnesota next week. Alex Clancy, Locked On Cardinals. Remember, without you, there is no me. I will talk to you tomorrow.